Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. We are back and this is day one. Today what I'm going to be talking about is everything I did to try and save my hair and why I stopped even though I'm only in my 20s. I'll be talking about how I actually noticed this was, well, a perceived problem, all of the treatments that I've tried, thirdly, why it was never enough, and finally, why I actually stopped. But before I get ahead of myself, let's jump right into it. So first, there was the awareness phase. It started with just a bit of shedding, and before I knew it, I was spending quite a bit of headspace and time, browsing things like Reddit and YouTube, and the mission was really to try to slow it down, reverse it, or hide it. Over time, this created a very self-conscious mindset that I would say wasn't the best thing to carry around, especially if you're already a busy professional. At that point in time, I was not only doing a full-time job, I also had several different side hustles, and yet I still had this thing to worry about, right? So I think a lot of this was to some extent self-inflicted and to some extent catalyzed by external negative feedback loops that I might have received over time. So that's how this whole thing started. Let's move right into the part of the video that you actually came here to watch, which is all the treatments that I tried. And the first one is going to be none other than minoxidil. I actually started using this while I was still in uni. Back in the UK, this was very readily available. I might have bought a few pirated versions of it here and there, meaning that, it wasn't actually the real thing. But nonetheless, eventually I found the real thing, the Regain or Rogaine, as it might be called in various markets. And the idea of minoxidil is it dilates the blood vessels in your scalp, so it increases blood supply to the individual follicles. Theoretically, this should provide follicles with the required nutrients, oxygen and all that stuff to make hair grow longer and thicker. It worked to some extent. We did see a bit of regrowth here and there, or rather some thickening of hair or some growth of terminal hairs, whereas they may originally have been like baby or vellus hairs, but it didn't really completely solve the problem. So then I went on to the second thing on the list, which were the 5-alpha reductase inhibitors, or rather the DHT blockers, such as finasteride and dutasteride. I've talked about this in a previous video, but the long and short of it is hair loss is typically caused by either sensitivity to this hormone called dihydrotestosterone or simply high levels of the hormone in the first place. This is actually a byproduct of testosterone. What these drugs do is it blocks the conversion of testosterone into that DHT and therefore would address the root cause of male pattern baldness in the first place. The issue is, however, that it is possible to be a non-responder, or indeed to be too far gone by the time the effects start kicking in after say 6 to 12 months, that you don't actually see that much regrowth, or you just maintain your hairline. In fact, a lot of doctors would tell you that just maintaining what you already have will be considered a good outcome if you are making use of finasteride and dutasteride, and indeed if you already have an aggressive form of hair loss. So those are the main treatments that are FDA approved. Now, if you want to keep your results though, here is the catch. You will have to continuously apply these medications for life, or at least until that point in time where you decide that just going bald is actually okay. You're just kind of delaying the inevitable, if you may. The other thing that I tried out were all of these various shampoos, like caffeine shampoos, as well as microneedling. They help to enhance the effects of the earlier two meds, but they don't really do anything on their own. And then you have the fourth and final thing on the list, which is going to be, of course, the consults for hair transplants, and that includes the FUT and the FUE. And the FUT, as far as I understand it, is more like taking a strip of hair out of the back of a donor section and then planting it to the target region, and that apparently is quite a lot more invasive than the FUE, which basically uses an individual needle or individual punch to extract follicles one by one and then plant them into the target regions. Now, I actually preferred the less invasive option, so I reached out to several clinics based in Bangkok where I frequent. It is nearby and it's relatively cheap. About 5,000 Singapore dollars was what I was quoted. However, they told me that actually for my condition, especially because it was diffuse, it was better that I use the FUT technique. I was in fact advised by a doctor that they wouldn't do an FUE just yet if they were me, because it was likely that I would then have to have multiple procedures over a lifetime, and they wanted to make sure that there was sufficient donor area to do future transplants with. And in my mind, I was like, okay, first of all, this is going to be really invasive, and second of all, you're just going to have to go through that again and again. And at one point, I was like, is this all really necessary? That brings me on to the third point of the video, which was why it was never enough, because all of this hair stuff just felt like it was one more fix away. That included the use of things like hair fibers, you can include things like wigs and all of that stuff, but each attempt left me feeling more and more like I was just patching over a leak and trying to get back up to the same level as the average guy, instead of fixing the foundation of the problem, which was the self-image issues that these were causing. I realized I wasn't really chasing hair, I was chasing control, and at the end of the day, after spending all of this money and ingesting all of these chemicals, what are we really trying to do? Are we just trying to fight for a consolation prize, i.e. hair that is average or below average at best, especially if your condition is aggressive? one day I looked in the mirror, I thought I was done with all of this. Several other life events had just happened. I might cover this slightly later down the line in the channel. And I thought to myself, what if I just stopped resisting and stopped thinking like I needed to improve all the time, or I needed to improve something to impress someone else, and leaned into the cards that I've been dealt? What if the freedom wasn't really in fixing something, but in having this ability to let go? And just like a monk that would preach this kind of stuff, I decided to buzz it all off. Overall, I think that this has been the right decision for now. Only time will tell whether I decide to actually stick with this, because it has really been just one day, but already I'm seeing a lot of mental bandwidth that I've gotten back. There's also the daily freedom of not having to pepper my head with hair fibers and then go and scrub the toilet floor to make sure that it is clean after that, and no more constant mirror checks. There's also a clearer identity and more grounded self-worth, because ultimately I feel that if I can get confident in this look over time, definitely if you're going down this route, I will allow yourself a lot of time for that to develop. The foundation for your self-esteem or self-image is really going to go all the way down to the bedrock, rather than be anchored in something that is volatile or even temporary. So that is all from me for today. Hopefully you found this video informative. If you did, do consider leaving a like. And if you want to see more such content, as well as some interesting social experiments that are just around the corner, I'm actually going for a pickleball meetup this weekend to try this whole thing out, then you're going to want to stay subscribed to this channel. With all that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.